develop passion if you don't have it. It's not a problem. Okay? Know what to teach, how to teach, and how to improve. And the most important one of those three is what? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't know what to teach right now, and you're not sure how to teach, but you know that you can go out and read a book, you know that you can get some help from somebody, you'll learn the other two. As long as you can work and improve what you're doing, you'll be fine. Okay? So, yes, what to teach, what is it that's important? Picking out the key things in a lesson that you got to teach. You can't teach everything in the book, guys. Okay? Even though you'll have some administrators who will say, here's the book. Here it is, right here. Okay? And I want you to go through every page with your students. And you just say, yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am. But you can't do it. It's not possible. You have to figure out what the key ideas are. It's important. And a lot of the time, the key ideas are not the content at all, but teaching somebody in science. How many science teachers out there? Hands up. Science. One? Two? Okay? In science, what's the most important thing to teach the students? What do you think?
Yeah, the concepts, yeah. The concepts.
Okay. If I'm talking sort of the process, though, what would you be thinking of? What would you think of?
I teach them scientific thinking.
Scientific thinking, the scientific method, right? Isn't that the most important thing? If they can think, because 90% of your students will not grow up to be scientists, is that not correct?
99.
Right? 99%, okay. So the most important thing is what you teach the 99%. Now the 1%, the science is most important, because they're going to become scientists. They need all those ideas, everything, right? But that's only 1%. The 99%, the most valuable thing is the process of thinking scientifically, looking at things in a step-by-step manner. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. So, you know, if you look at it, so if you focus on, you talk about science, focusing on the process is more important. Because guess what? They're probably going to forget 60 to 70%, maybe more, of what they learn.
They do.
Okay? All right. Excel at creating exciting environments. Okay? This, again, is not always a function of somebody being a rah-rah, jump-up-and-down guy. Okay? I mean, I admit that sort of naturally, that wasn't always this way. When I was younger, I was a lot more shy, sorry. But as I've gotten older, I kind of get, you know, I kind of like to have fun and sort of, you know, I can jump around, jump up and down a little bit. I mean, my boys, when I come home, you know, it's kind of like, you know, create an exciting environment. I get in the house and they want me to, I throw Derek in the air and, you know, tickle them and play monster and chase them around. Four-year-old and 5-year-old, all you got to do is act stupid and you create an exciting environment. Okay? And sometimes with elementary kids, it works, right? But again, it's not required. You can be a quiet, you know, quiet sort of thinking teacher. I look at Jean as I say this, and I mean, I happen to know Jean's presentation style because she was in a class of mine last semester where we all had, it was a seminar course, so everybody had to do some presenting. Now, Jean's style is, you know, sort of a scholarly kind of style, as you're looking at the details of that, but Jean can create exciting environments. And the way she does it is, in the prop, kind of like Miss Erin does it. In the props that she does, in the activities she does, she'll teach you a song, okay? So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a rah-rah person to do it. There are plenty of ways to create excitement and engage the students, even if you're pretty low-key. I mean, Jean, that's a fair statement, right? You're a pretty low-key person, is that fair? Okay? So even if you're low-key style, like Jean's style, you can still do it, okay? There are many ways to do it, okay? So your personality is not part of this. It could fit any personality. Connecting with students. This is critical. Understanding where the students are coming from, understanding what they're about. And we've had several people that have already mentioned ideas about ways you can do this. We talked about Warren Benson, who was struggling in his classroom last week, and some of the things that he could do. And I know those were great examples. One of the best things you can do, which is considered to be a no-no, but as I said, I don't necessarily follow all of the different things that are considered to be no-nos. A lot of them work. So just do them anyway. Just don't tell anybody. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. But, you know, one of the things that are considered to be a no-no is getting to know your kids outside of class, and I don't agree with that. Okay? You do have to control it. You do have to be careful. You do have to be sensitive to gender issues. Like I said a little while ago, if you're a 23-year-old man teaching, it probably isn't a good idea to take your 17-year-old female students, you know, for a coffee at Starbucks, you know, and then a movie. You know, it's probably not the smartest idea you've ever had in your life. But, you know, given that you look at things and be sensitive to things that are not appropriate, and culturally sensitive too. You know, because there's certain things that are less acceptable and more acceptable in other cultures. Give me an example of that. In Canada, some of the things I did with my students in Texas, I probably would not do in Canada. You know, like where I took my students, I used to take them out for bowling and stuff like that. You'd have to be kind of careful in Canada, because Canada they get a little bit sensitive towards things, and there's a lot more legal issues. Texans, especially the Mexicanos, the way they look at it is the teacher is mom or dad. That's your role when you're in the classroom, you know. And I even saw, you know, my principal going up to kids and going like this, mi hijo, which means my child, which is what you'd say to your son. Or mi hija, which is what you say to your daughter. That's a term of affection for a little child, like my child. In Mexican, in the Spanish language, that the Mexicans use. Okay? Challenging students. We're going to talk about that. I don't want to go too much on these, because we're going to have some activities on some of these. And getting extraordinary results. Well, the last one kind of follows from the others. Does that make sense? If you're doing the other things, if you have passion, and you're working on what to teach, the key things, how to teach, which means improving your delivery, improving your methodology, right? Improving your methods of reaching students. If you're doing all that, okay, and you know how to improve, and you excel at creating exciting environments, or you're getting better at doing that, and you connect with the students, you challenge the students, you're going to get extraordinary results. It's pretty much a given. Okay, it's going to follow. Does that make sense? Any questions so far on this? Okay, let me move along here. Let's break passion down a little bit. And he talks about 4 key areas. He talks about the passion for learning. If you look at your students, I can't tell you the number of times that I've come in. I mean, tonight, and I was going to talk about this book. I don't know if we'll get a chance to or not. But, you know, this is a book which is very interesting for multicultural education. This was printed in 1950. It's by Farley Mowat. It's called People of the Deer. Okay? It concerns the Inuit people of northern Canada and how they lived, and some of the changes that came about when the white man came, which were mostly bad changes for the poor Inuit who started to starve and die. But nonetheless, this book is a very, very powerfully written book by one of our sort of icon authors. Farley Mowat would be in Canadian literature. Most people have heard of him or know him well. But if I have a book like that and I'm sitting there reading it, I can't tell you the number of times that my kids have asked me about what I'm reading. It happens all the time. If you got a book, and I don't necessarily, obviously you don't read it while you're teaching, I'm not saying that. But if you have a silent reading period, you should read too. If you're telling the kids, you got the next 20 minutes I want you to read, don't catch up on your grades. That's a rotten example. Or don't go, you know, marking some papers. That's a lousy example. If you're telling the kids to read, then you get out a book and you read too. But you know what? They'll ask you about what you're reading. And then that's a chance for a teachable moment where you can say, well, yeah, I'm still learning. And what you're doing is you're modeling, you're asking them to come to class every day to learn. And you're showing them that you're coming to class every day to learn. Miss Aaron's another example that she always had a book on her desk. And many, many times the students would say, what are you reading, Miss Aaron? What's it about? And they would talk to her about it. Okay? Very powerful. Obviously, the field of study. If you're a scientist teacher and you spend all of your time reading fashion magazines, okay, nothing wrong with fashion magazines. I'm not criticizing them. But if you spend all your time reading fashion magazines and you're a science teacher, okay, the guy, you're a science teacher, what is your teacher, what are the students going to think?
I don't want to be a model like that to them.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a star.
Yeah, it's a different kind of model, but that's not what you're trying to do, right? It's a lousy example, because you've told them that learning about science is important, so you should be learning about science. You can have Scientific American, Popular Mechanics, many, many books that are out there that have to do with science topics. Okay? You don't have to necessarily read, you know, scholarly journals. You could be reading Car and Driver, okay, or Motor Trend. Those are magazines that are about cars, the automotive industry, but of course the automotive industry involves tons of science. Designing those cars, building those cars, right? You know? Or if you're going to read, if you want to read about the fashion industry, you read about how textiles are made. Does that make sense? You connect to your subject. You should be passionate about what it is your field of study. Okay? Students, of course. Okay? I mean, this is a famous example in Canada, and unfortunately this ruined this guy's career. But when I tell you this, you're going to understand.